Halloween
Forever.
Hey guys, what do dyslexic zombies eat?
I don't know, Brian.
Brian's. Welcome, boys and girls, to another fucking episode of Halloween Forever. I'm Brains.
I'm Jem. Do we have to fuck this up?
Yeah.
I'm Champ.
Oh, we are here, guys, for another Minisode. And boy, we got to keep it light here because we just watched a heavy ass movie. Holy shit.
Yeah, I was telling Steve that I was like mildly traumatized and he was just blaming me for doing it to myself. And he's not wrong. But
listen, this movie I thought fucking ruled.
Yeah.
But it was mean as hell and pulled
Intense.
Zero punches. We are talking about 2021's recently released as a Shudder. Was it like a Shudder exclusive or one of those kind of things, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. The Sadness, a Shudder original, they're calling it. The Sadness from 2021. We are going to talk about that sumbitch. And whoa, that is a nonstop thrill ride of gore and depravity. Holy fuck. But yeah, so we'll get into it here in a damn hot sec. We were actually just talking about as we do before we get on the podcast, we're usually talking about processed meats. I was talking about how I was getting, had a little lunch at the Eaton Park with my family and my in-laws. And then we got on the topic of Spam. And I said, let's roll this motherfucker. Let's talk about Spam on the show. Spam doesn't get enough love. Meg has in recent years, it sounds like, adopted the Spam lifestyle.
I think I need more recipes, though. You know what, though? While we were on, so basically to give the listeners a little backstory, I had never had Spam in my life until I took a trip out west and we were like camping in like Joshua Tree and Death Valley and shit. So what do you get? You get processed meat that will last and doesn't need to be refrigerated.
And you don't need to exactly, yeah.
Yeah, but I picked up on the way these like single slice guys, and that was pretty legit. I need to find them again.
You know what you can do? Just buy the damn loaf, slice it up.
Right, but like I'm a single person living. It's not like I'm going to share with anyone, and I also have a thing about. But I have a thing about never just like eating a full thing of Spam in one. I haven't had it that often, but like I probably wouldn't eat a whole can by myself.
That's how you get gout.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's pretty inadvisable, I think.
I saw that King of a Hill episode, too.
There was a lot of, I can only imagine, processed meat products that were used for the practical effects in this movie. But we'll get into that in a sec because we've got a couple of different little orders of business to discuss here. And I need to bring up the old Instagram because I am going to be finding out live here what our next showdown episode topic is going to be. For those of you new to the show, real quick rundown. Every single month we have we do weekly episodes every week, but once a month on the first Monday of the month we do a showdown episode, which means we pick usually 3 different topics, put it out on the social medias, and then all of our social media friends and followers will go on there and vote and decide what topic we're going to do for our showdown episode. Once we have the topic, we each pick a movie that pertains to that topic. We argue about it, we vote, and someone takes home the goddamn championship belt. Now, Steve won last month after long last, and he made us pay for it by watching Verotika, which is perhaps the worst movie ever committed to celluloid. And
it infiltrated my entire social media because I have seen nonstop Danzig fucking memes now.
Yep. Danzig is, I imagine, gonna start delivering your mail. You're gonna go to the dentist, and the dental hygienist is gonna be Glenn Danzig.
Do you think he just wipes his ass with the mail and then drops it off? Because I just imagine that's the only thing he would do.
Yeah. That sounds like a good idea. That sounds like something Glenn Danzig would do. I don't know what made. We're just thinking about mail and thinking about I'm imagining Glenn Danzig getting his mail, because there's that very famous picture that's been turned into a million memes of Danzig just doing mundane things, mostly grocery shopping, and he's carrying the big bag of kitty litter. That's like a very, very famous picture. I just imagine if anyone in the world has a really obnoxious, over dramatic letter opener, it's probably Glenn Danzig.
Oh,
Like he's probably got a letter opener that's like a serrated, dagger, sacrificial dagger with a skull on the end or something like that.
And see, he probably has like that really ornate dagger, like you're talking.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, he owns like maybe 3 spoons.
Like imagine him like coming down with his hair all messed up and like picking his belly button. He's just like spreading butter on toast with a giant ceremonial dagger.
Right. He uses
But
it
you
for
can't
everything.
eat soup at his house.
Yeah. It spreads his butter. He opens his mail with it. He picks his toe with it.
Oh my God.
Ooh, botched it. Botch job. Yeah, that's highly likely. Let me go ahead and pick. Let's see. Where is our? Dang it! I do this every time, and I never remember how to fucking. Got it! Holy shit, guys. It was a close one. Twitter might come into effect here, okay? So I will tell you what the votes were on Instagram. And let me remind you what we're going to do for next month's episode. It will be our 1-year anniversary, believe it or not, boys and ghouls. For those of you who have been along for the entire year trip with us, or perhaps even close to that long, thank you very much. We very much appreciate you. But there has been some great topics that you dumb motherfuckers out there have completely blew it on and picked other things, but there were topics that we really wanted to do, and maybe they just got outvoted for whatever reason. So what we did was each of us picked our favorite topic that didn't win, but did get called out by the wheel earlier in the year, and we put those 3 on there. Now, as a reminder, Steve selected Monsters from the Deep. I selected Big Top Horror, so anything, clown, circus related, whatever. And Meg selected the Child's Play franchise, Chucky, anything Chucky, Child's Play. So, in third place, Child's Play Chucky. It did not score particularly well, Meg. I am regretful to tell you, you did not win.
I'm real sad now.
Now, the other 2 were separated by but 1 vote.
Oh.
So Twitter, which usually we get way less votes on Twitter just because our Instagram following is a lot bigger. I have never seen one even close to the. Usually, the close ones are 5-10 votes off. This is literally 1 vote. And coming in first place by a scant 1 vote is Big Top Horror.
Ooh.
Was my selection.
You totally influenced
we have
that.
to go to Twitter. I did do that, and I am not ashamed to say it. So we got to look at Twitter now and see how many votes, because we need to add in here to bring Twitter into the mix.
Okay, well, Twitter was a completely different story.
Okay.
And like you said, we don't get as many votes. We only had 10 votes on this poll.
Okay.
And it was tied between Child's Play. That came in, that tied.
Okay.
But coming in third was Big Top Horror.
Oh.
So the votes break down. Monsters from the Deep and Child's Play both got 4 votes, and Big Top Horror got 2 votes.
Holy shit. Monsters from the Deep leapfrogged to go into first place then, because it outvoted because Child's Play on here was not anywhere close, but that 1 vote was erased by Twitter. So maybe the first time ever Twitter decides it, we're doing Monsters from the Deep.
Oh sure.
First time ever, Twitter decided in just a swing of like 1 vote, because Big Top Horror went 1 vote up. And it just swung around. Now Monsters from the Deep is 1 vote up.
Damn it. I don't even know if I voted on Twitter. That was stupid. I really fucked myself there, guys. All right. Well, that being said, we have decided the social medias have decided for us our 1 year anniversary showdown topic for the month of June will be Monsters from the Deep. So next episode, we'll pop over there and friggin' tell you what we're going to pick, what each of our selections for the next showdown episode will be. But, guys, we got other things to deal with here. First of all, do we have any beers in front of us that we want to talk about?
That we want to talk about?
That you feel comfortable revealing what you're drinking.
Yeah. So, like, this weekend, I helped out Hop Farm a couple times. Yesterday at the Lagerfest, which you should ask Malcolm about his shorts. Just talk to him about it.
Yeah. It's a
he like pretty
subject.
much showed up, and we had like a Grady twin situation between Justin and Malcolm, where they were both wearing incredibly short. Yeah,
I thought
short
you
khakis.
said Schwartz. I thought you meant like a black, like a
That's what I
Schwartz
heard
beer.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought maybe like he had a like black lager there that sucked or something, and I was going to taunt him for it.
You can just make that up though.
Mm.
Yeah, no, but I actually, so when I got back to the brewery, I like snagged some beer, and I have pub games, which you might have drank recently. It's the English style mild ale. It's nice. It's good.
Yeah.
I'm into it.
Yep, I drank that a couple episodes ago, I think. A few episodes ago, I forget, or maybe it was before an episode.
But I will add that Lager Festival that Golden Age put on yesterday was
it
awesome.
fun?
Yeah, I mean, the first session wasn't super packed, but it was still really chill, and that venue is absolutely gorgeous. Beers were across the board really good.
Nice.
I really didn't have any stinkers, so
Nice. Yeah, I wanted to come. I spent my time yesterday cooking about a dozen whole chickens and probably 300, 400 legs and thighs.
Jesus.
For a big fundraiser that I got suckered into cooking for last minute. So I was grilling a whole mess of chickens yesterday. So really nice relaxing day off on a Saturday. But it was fun. It was fun. Staying outside, drinking beer, cooking a bunch of chicken. You could do worse. As far as beersies are concerned, I'm also drinking a Lagerbier. Well, you're not drinking Lagerbier, but Lagerfest. I am drinking, I know one of Steve's favorites, which is the Helles Schlenkerla Lagerbier in can, if you can see that. Look at that. This is their smoked Helles lager beer, or more specifically, I think this is the one we talked about in the past, where they're actually just repitching from their smoked Märzen. So it's a Helles that's getting quite a bit of like phenolic carryover and smoke character from the yeast, from repitching the yeast from a smokier beer. There actually is a lot of verbiage on the back of this can. Boiled in the same copper kettles. Oh, here we go. We'll read it because we talked about this before. Helles Schlenkerla Lager is brewed with fine Bavarian aroma hops and lagered in the 14th century beer cellars underneath the Schlenkerla brewery and maltings. I guess malt house is what they mean by that. It is boiled in the same copper kettles and bottom fermented by the same yeast as the classic Schlenkerla Rock beer. Its subtle smokiness hence makes this Schlenkerla style a unique representative of the traditional German lager beer type Helles. So yeah, I think that kind of settles it. They used the yeast and put it in the same system, but no smoked malt. I think that's kind of what they were trying to communicate there. But always a tasty one and pretty darn fresh. And this can's fucking sick. It's like printed on. It's pretty cool.
Oh, nice. Where'd you pick that one up?
I got this at a liquor store in beautiful... Oh, I should mention this. Jeez Louise. I actually, on Friday the 13th, which was this past Friday, I had to go spend some time with one of our wholesalers in beautiful New Jersey. Went out there to do a training and hang out with some folks. Of course, wore my Friday the 13th Jason socks, even my Camp Crystal Lake shirt. I actually completely unplanned. We ended up in Voorhees, New Jersey on Friday the 13th.
Oh, fun.
That's fucking dope.
Yeah, isn't that wild? I didn't even know Voorhees was a place. And the guy, like, he was like, oh, we're meeting at this place, whatever. After we went to distributor, we were going to go to these couple, like, liquor stores or whatever. Sends it to me. He's like, oh, this is over in Voorhees. I was like, like I immediately Googled. I was like, oh, that's a town. I didn't know
funny.
that was named after a town in New Jersey, but I was actually in Voorhees, New Jersey on Friday the 13th, which was.
Did they do anything special, or was there any?
I saw
sort of...
nothing. I went we went to a Firkin festival, which we took a Firkin of our Maybach, and it was super fun. Got to hang out with like a bunch of cool people, a bunch of brewers from all over Philly at this. It was Broken Goblet Brewing Company hosted it, and it was called Friday the 13th.
Oh, nice.
I was like, oh, sweet. So like I said, I wore my Friday 13th shirt, socks, the whole thing. No one else, like literally no one else wearing anything Friday 13th. I'm like, what the fuck are you guys doing? I'm the only one.
So you're telling me they didn't have a 2-for-1 Jason Burger sale?
That's what I was saying. Somebody at least have a freaking $5 CVS fucking hockey mask on, something. No, it was a very fun event though. But yeah, it was not necessarily very Friday the 13th movie franchise themed, but it was really fucking fun. It had some awesome cask beers and gravity fed lager beers, and yeah, it was cool.
That's great.
Nice.
Yep. Except for the lack of like Jason masks and stuff
I know,
like that.
yeah,
I think you should have had. We should just get some that are we like paint kind of branded for us, and then you just always have them on you, and then you just start handing them out to people randomly.
Oh, I did actually. They had a really cool concert venue there, and they had this big like pillar that had all these stickers all over it, and I did have my coworker who's much taller and more athletic than me jump up and put the Halloween is Forever sticker at the very tippy top above all the other stickers. So it has now been graffitied with Halloween is Forever. So we left our mark in some capacity.
Branded for the top.
Yeah.
So we are switching places this week, Brian. Last week I drank a smoked Helles. And you drank an old beer. Well, this week you're drinking a smoked Helles, and I'm drinking an old beer.
Yeah, and not old in a good way, not old in an old money tickers type of way.
No,
this beer is past its prime kind of way. It sounds like.
Well, kind of. I think I'm coming right on the wire.
Yeah.
But this is Bell's Wild Spruce Chase, which is a spruce tip IPA. And looking at the code, it says it was packaged on October 15th, but it has a shelf life of 6 months. So just past, because it's like 7 months later now.
Yeah.
But it's still fine. It's not, it's not gross. It's just, it's
not
an
ideal.
old IPA.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the IPA. They don't age terribly gracefully, so it is what it is. I grabbed a 4-pack of, actually a couple different 4-packs of Wiseacre beer when I was out in New Jersey, because we don't get, not Wiseacre, I'm sorry, Half Acre from Chicago out here, but they do get it out in like Philly, New Jersey market and stuff like that. So I grabbed a couple of them, and I grabbed a 4-pack of Bodum, which is a great IPA. That they have, and it was regrettably not in great condition. And again, like I said, I don't think it's the beer's fault. I think it was just somebody wasn't rotating their stock or not storing it particularly well. But always disappointing, especially when you look at it and you're like, oh, this beer's pretty fresh by the code date, and then you taste it and you're like, somebody fucked this beer up. Somebody left it in a fucking unrefrigerated truck on a dock somewhere for 9 hours.
I feel like one of the times I imagine you, Brian, like going apeshit on someone, it'll be for that exact situation. It'll be you yelling at a wholesaler. That's how you're gonna lose it one day.
I have done that on multiple occasions. I've gotten to screaming matches with wholesalers. It happens. It's emotions run hot when you're talking about tasty lager beer and you fuck it up and get all mad at you. I thought you guys would appreciate this. I ordered a couple of patches for various hats and things via Etsy, and this has become like my new favorite thing to do on Etsy. Is when I buy things the reason I love to is people throw in like all these little extras and stuff, but I bought this patch for one of my hats. I don't know if you could see it, but it's just got like an old camcorder on it. It says, I'll be watching you. It's like a record thing.
Oh my God.
But with this, and I also bought this little pin, and it's just like a pin that's got a bunch of like schlocky VHS tape stuff on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they threw in all this other stuff, one of which was this little tiny Be Kind Rewind pin.
Ooh.
And then a couple of old trading cards. One of them is a band trading cards, rock cards from 1991, and it is a Anthrax Frank Bello card.
Wow.
Look at that.
That's awesome.
Look at this fucking picture on the back, which is sick. It's like mint condition. It's brand new. And then the other one, even better, it's the scene from Gremlins 2 with Leonard Moulton.
Of course.
Oh, great.
A Gremlins 2,
So perfect
the
for
new
you.
batch card. Yeah, I was like, geez, somebody's been creeping on my Instagram or something. Sending me
I
all
feel
this
like
cool
that'll
stuff.
be one of the things that has a full-blown resurgence is just cards. I obviously know it is coming back, like between
yeah.
like my niece and nephew, but also just seeing like, you know, what are those Garbage Pail Kids cards and shit like
Oh
that.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that Avery was on. They did one of those and they did like a Brewers version, like
Oh.
Brewers Garbage Pail Kids.
Oh, that's interesting.
Oh,
That was kind of fun.
Omnipolo did one too, or is that the same one?
I'm not sure. Maybe I mean, they had a bunch of different brewers, but I didn't look and see who all was on it.
Yeah, I saw the Omnipolo one. So yeah.
At some point, we need to watch the Garbage Pail Kids movie. It's not horror, but it is horrifying. And
It's gross.
It's really gross.
I have
It's
no
really,
idea what it is.
It's a bunch of like little people in like giant paper mache heads. It's fucking insane.
Oh, so
It's
it's not a cartoon.
No, it's live action.
Oh,
It would have
my
made more
God.
sense for it to be cartoon, but no,
Yeah.
it's a live action.
I could see it being
Garbage
good
Pail Kids
claymation
movie.
too.
Yeah. Oh, that would be
Yeah,
fucking
yeah.
great. No, it's not any of those good
Oh
things.
my God.
It's only bad things. But it is fucking wild. We should do that at some point. In any case, maybe we'll start. Steve and I were talking about this a while ago. Even is like occasionally, maybe it's a once a month, once every other month thing. We take a non-horror movie and we just throw it in there, like a horror adjacent movie. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like you were talking about. What there was an action movie, Steve. You were talking about how you wanted to watch.
Oh, we talked about a bunch because we were
yeah.
talking about doing Bloodsport. We were talking about doing Punisher.
yeah,
we were talking
yeah.
about doing
Death Race.
Death Race. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. We talked about doing a bunch. So
Yeah, maybe we need to institute that at some point. But in any case, that's what we're not talking about today. The movie we're talking about today is full-on motherfucking horror. It is, like I said, The Sadness from 2021, recently released as a Shudder original. I'll do this because this movie is a lot of things, I would say. And in my experience, or like in my first time watch, like just watched it this morning, well executed pretty much across the board. Like it's a tough movie at parts, but ridiculously entertaining, I thought. But it definitely is, you like kind of have to wrap your head around what the hell's going on a little bit, and like it just it's pretty cool. But I
tried to read a few reviews, and one of them I thought was interesting that like even they just like watching it a few times, but also maybe just getting like a background on what's going on in like local politics, and saying that you might actually have a little bit more success seeing different things if you kind of already have that understanding of what's going on too, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah. It definitely was a searing social commentary, I would say. But it is a Taiwanese horror flick from 2021, but it is directed by a Canadian, actually, in his very first feature-length directorial debut. And I'm not even 100% sure how to say his last name, but his name is Rob, I would say Jabbaz or Jabbaz. Anybody? Yeah. Jabbaz.
We'll just call him Robbie for this this episode.
Yeah, but boy, howdy, as an original, or as a kickoff to his feature-length directorial career, heck of a kickoff here. I'll read the IMDb very brief synopsis here. A young couple trying to reunite amid a city ravaged by a plague that turns its victims into deranged, bloodthirsty sadists. So at the beginning, they do a great job of really, and I knew nothing about this movie going in. I just knew it was wild. That's all I heard. But in the first and it's fast paced. It starts fast. I mean, it's there's a little bit of a setup, good amount of character development, but like
No
shit
time
hits
wasted.
the fan
Yeah.
pretty early on. And you think it is a 28 days later type, zombie rage virus type zombies, right? But there's a lot more to it than that. And you kind of get little bits and pieces of it for the first part of the movie, like kind of slid your direction, and then by halfway through you kind of fully understand what's going on. But yeah, there's a lot of very clearly coronavirus themes here with all the like political discourse and accusing bipartisan politics, accusing the other side of fear mongering, and you know what I mean. It's all that sort of stuff. It's very, very on the surface, but like I said, then it goes into like this pretty like searing social commentary, which we'll talk about in a second. But I don't know, what was your first impressions of the movie? Did you know anything about it going in? Were you surprised? Were you pleased, not pleased? What was your like initial reaction?
I was pretty happy with it. It's definitely a take no prisoners film in a way.
Yeah.
And probably the most impressive thing is all of the practical effects that you get.
Holy shit. Yeah, really, really good practical effects.
Yeah.
And like you said, mean movie. Takes no prisoner, pulls no punches at all. So
Yeah, when we were first talking about doing this one, I was like, well, this is coming out a date earlier than Friday the 13th because there was a lot of really interesting stuff dropping that week. But I kind of like passively watched it that day, just kind of like not fully paying attention. So that the things I caught, I was like, this is insane. This is like intense. And like, it's, things that you might have seen hinted in other movies, but it's still like, I felt like was a really unique take on the idea of like a zombie movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then rewatching it today for this episode, I was just like, this is crazier than I thought. Like, I just like, I don't know. I felt anxious throughout it, like after rewatching it, just because when like we'll probably go through a lot of like the different kills because I think there was a lot of interesting things they did. Instead of like a quick jump, it's like no, it's just it never ended in these scenes. It was so intense. I was like,
yeah, they really.
I as much as I was like, oh my god, this is like traumatizing. I felt like it was really well done.
Yeah.
So. The little bit of research I did after watching it, I read that the director based this movie, a lot of it, on a comic book called Crossed. Mm-hmm. And the comic book was written by Garth Ennis, who created The Boys.
Yep.
And then also Alan Moore wrote some issues as well. So like two really big names.
Yeah,
big names in the comic world, but also that kind of really explains like where a lot of this violence comes from, because Garth Ennis is like pull no punches as well. He, if you've ever watched The Boys, that shit is over the top.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I did know it was based loosely on a comic book, but I never heard of it and didn't know anything about it, and I didn't go any deeper. But yeah, I did not know there were two like big names,
legends,
juggernauts. I was going to say of like, and I love comics, and I was much more into them, some years back. But if I know who they are, that like they probably are big deals. You know what I mean? But the other thing that I really liked about this movie, because it had all the like insane graphic violence and disturbing violence and all this stuff, but also like there were genuinely creepy parts too, like tense, spooky kind of almost parts. Like early in the movie where you see the first image of the old woman who later dumps flaming hot French fry grease on the guy's face and rips his face off, like. Her standing on the other like rooftop when he's looking at her from the balcony, it was like a really genuinely creepy kind of scene, I thought.
Yeah.
And it seemed very familiar to me, and I couldn't place what movie that felt like it was kind of an homage to. I wanted to say like my first thing was like, oh, it's like the it was like The Happening or some sort of M. Night Shyamalan-y type of scene. At first, it kind of felt like that, but I feel like there's something else that I'm connecting that scene to, and I Have not been. I've been thinking about it all afternoon, and I can't.
I just rewatched It Follows, and it kind of reminded me of that a little bit.
I could see that, like where you stand on the roof and they drive away.
But it's not. But I know that's not probably not what you're thinking. But
No,
it
there's
kind of had that
something else. You know, that's a better comparison than what I had in my head. But I know there's something else that I'm missing, and
I feel like it's just got to be like another zombie movie.
Yeah, I know.
Where like it's the first encounter with a zombie that that's what I kept thinking of, but it just it still was effective that way.
Yeah, the thing of like someone just like looking out and seeing someone. Maybe it is It Follows. Maybe you're right. I don't know. But I like when I saw that, it just seemed you almost got like deja vu. You know what I mean? When I saw that scene. But
I was really intrigued by it, just like visually stimulating this movie was. And I did look up. I was like trying to find out what like the cinematographer's like background was, and he hasn't done a lot of stuff either. And I don't want to butcher his name, but it's maybe like Jai Bai or something. But yeah, even him. This is one of his first features as well. There might be one other one. But I thought he did great as well. It's like
the
very
cinematography I thought was awesome. The special effects were obviously awesome. Even the ones that were even the CGI ones, I thought were I don't know why I want to say tastefully done, but I mean, I guess like the CGI was peppered in a way that was complimentary, I feel like.
Right. It wasn't such like that it stuck out. Like when you see action films and the blood sprays come up instead of using squibs, I think they did a really good job of marrying practical effects and then sweetening them with, visual effects and CGI as needed. And then if something just didn't work, it was kind of hard to tell, where it didn't work.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And most of this movie is in broad daylight, which is also impressive with this stuff. Or, I mean, some instances like the train, it's dimly lit, but like this stuff all happens, during the day. So you do get a lot of, plenty of stuff in broad daylight, although some of the most like kind of violent scenes happen indoors or underground or that sort of thing. But,
But to your point too, Brian, where you talked about how this like just had some like kind of even just like scary moments. I feel like even they did a good job. Like I'm specifically thinking about the eye fucking scene, which we can probably talk about later. Is like I feel like it left a lot to be like I scared myself because I was imagining. I was like playing it all through my head.
Yeah.
I'm still not over it.
Yeah, Molly, boy. So early on they did a lot of like I think this was I would have to say by design. They did a lot of classic tension building zombie things. You know what I mean? Like they really lured you into this idea that this is just an infection movie. Like I said, 28 Days Later, even I mean, there were times when he was going through, when they woke up in the morning and then, so the two main characters are Jim and Kat, who are the kind of couple. And Kat goes off to work. Jim drops her off. There's some like little bit of conflict between them, but it's, cutesy boyfriend, girlfriend stuff, whatever. And then he's just kind of going around and they're seeing these little like hints and indications that shit is going awry, but they're not really either noticing it or putting two and two together. And it reminded me of Shaun of the Dead in a lot of ways, like where they wake up hungover and he goes over to get like the ice cream, you know what I mean, in the morning and a Pepsi or a Coke or whatever. So it just obviously not played for laughs, but it just reminded me of that. So there were a lot of like early in a zombie movie tropes. I feel like that you felt like you knew what was happening, but the characters did not. So you were ahead of the characters in that way. But then it turns out you didn't fully understand what was happening either. You know what I mean?
Right. But I also even think to that is that I also felt like it allowed for, because of how new it was, this movie is that I felt like it allowed you to relate at all, because how many times are we seeing shit being bombarded, about the pandemic or what we did. And it kind of was like, yeah, well, they clearly had already been through a pandemic, and this is in theory supposed to be the tail end of it. Yeah. So now it's just mutating and something crazier is happening. So I feel like that apathy, I think, was just like a relatable thing as well. They're like
they definitely played on people's pandemic experience.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it was like also the thing that I thought, and obviously we're going to get deep into spoilers, so probably heavy spoiler alerts here. We're going to talk about everything about this movie, but the one thing I really liked about it is like I said, you just thought it was going to be a rage zombie thing. Then you started to understand that the infected were like incredibly like gleeful and like sadistic in what they were doing. And then you were like, oh, okay, that's the hook here. That's the evolution. If 28 Days Later did the fast-moving zombies, now this is fast-moving zombies that are like kind of self-aware and like what they're doing. It's not just all, baseline survival instincts. This is like organized zombies who have more wherewithal and are like sadistic. But then you realize that it's actually even more than that. It's like it basically takes their human nature and ratchets it up to 1,000 and just makes everything 100% classic ego focused, where it's just fuck, eat, kill. Like that's all they care about. You know what I mean?
Right.
In the most like lizard brain sense of the word. So yeah, it just kind of keeps evolving a couple of times past what you think you got a handle on it. You think I've seen a lot of horror movies. Okay, I get what they're doing here. Oh, wait, okay, now I get what they're doing. Oh shit, yeah, they're doing some you know what I mean? There was layers of the onion that you could keep peeling away.
And I think just early on, as we were still like learning, like, okay, how is this spreading, or what's going on, or how are we going to know when something's about to fucking go down? And it's even just like subtle things, like we started seeing like the teardrop thing happen. Yeah. And even just that, you're like, wow, okay, well, I'm going to prepare my butt for some blood right now. All right, go. Yeah. Yeah, so I thought that it was interesting. I don't know if we should give away just like right now though, like the actual reason why, like their explanation of all this, because you kind of started alluding to it, but it might like help us talk about all these things.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So like basically you learn it towards the end when Kat eventually meets, he was like one of the scientists behind all of this, and he basically described it exactly what you're saying, is that this virus affects or has mutated to affect the limbic nervous system, and basically that is something that it controls your aggression and what was it like controls your like sexual nature or something, and how that they're so combined. So basically exactly what you said, this basically if someone gets infected, it's like triggering every like sexual, aggressive, like crazy like intuition, sadistic, like intention that someone
like
could
your
have.
Desire to inflict pain on people, and mostly in a sexual manner.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So I think that's like learning that exact reason, because like I said, you get different ideas. You're like you watch them fucking someone on the street, you watch them like ripping someone's face apart, and you're like, what, this isn't what we normally see for a typical zombie. I mean, well, maybe the ripping
they're usually like emotionless and just either rage filled or just want to eat, and in this case they want to inflict pain and suffering. So it's like they're almost like it's weird, because in a way it's like they're not, other zombies like dehumanize the people, or even like thinking about The Walking Dead, like, they're like, oh, you got to, that old zombie trope of you got to put a bullet in your friend's brain because it's not your friend anymore, it's a zombie. This is like, oh, they're that person still. They're not less human, they're actually kind of more human, but in the most extreme instinctual sense. And they do a really good job of, and we'll talk about some specific instances where there are people who you get a taste of who they are before they get infected, and it gives foreshadowing about just how fucking awful they're going to be when their true deep-seated human nature driven intentions come out,
Yeah, can I ask you guys something, how you guys interpreted this? So like, talking about like spreading diseases, you're like, okay, how is this whole thing spreading? Like, is there a liquid, is it in the air? Okay, when we start getting to like some of the meat of it, did you feel like, so their physical alterations are obviously their eyes, and we start seeing liquid, but it almost looked like at one point that like the one guy like came out of his eyeballs, like he had literal semen on his face.
It did seem like, yeah, I was confused by that because it did kind of seem like that. But then in other people, there was all this puffiness around the eyes and it looked like some sort of like anaphylactic reaction.
Yeah.
They just needed to bust a load.
Yeah.
So I think
Meg, you're suggesting their face is full of cum?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
So, okay, it's possible somebody just came in that dude's face.
That's true.
He was fucking someone else though in that scene.
But I mean, this is after he was infected.
Yeah.
Because
I got you.
the way it is spread, and we see it in the diner, that old woman shows up again, and then she barfs in another guy's face, and she throws up like that gross, like it's like a deep yellow.
Curds.
Yeah, it's like a deep yellow cheese curd, and she throws it up in the dude's face.
Why would you bring that up?
I don't know. I just really wanted to say the grossest thing ever.
Yeah, and then he turns from that
like pretty damn quick.
Yeah. So it's like that's one of the ways to quickly spread it is through is through bodily fluid.
Right.
And that happens later in the film too, in a scene that you already mentioned, Meg. But
Correct.
Yeah, it is. There's definitely some like swelling of the sinuses that kind of happens, and then they, usually tears come, like their tear ducts like open up or something, and then later on, that guy suggests that it's like at some point in there. I think it was a really good touch, but I wish they would have just left it alone for you to decide rather than having the guy try to explain it. I don't know. We'll get there, but.
Yeah, because it doesn't. His explanation doesn't fully line up with everything that we saw.
Yeah, and
before that as well.
And he's an unreliable narrator a little bit too, so I get it. But I don't remember that was, and we'll get to it. But that was the only part. His like big almost exposition dump a little bit was the only part that I was like, come on, didn't need to do that.
It just dragged too long and everything. Yeah. But yeah, like common symptoms are like heavy sweating, fully dilated eyes, and you get like leakiness. People are just leaking.
I have all those symptoms.
Well,
sweaty, dilated pupils, leakage. I have all those things.
So after that scene where like Jim is the main character, he's in the diner and he sees like this whole thing go down. He runs back to his home, and I think that was probably the most effective scene for me as far as just like full on creep factor. Is like he's in his house, he doesn't know what's going on, and like he's just flipping through the channels, and everything is the warning system. There's an emergency, and then he turns on that creepy cartoon.
Yeah,
like the cartoon's playing in the background, and then
did you know anything more about that?
I didn't know anything more about that cartoon. I think it was just made specifically for that movie, because it was like, even though it was made to look older, it was definitely just because it was a panoramic. The animation wasn't. It was made to look older, but it was definitely from our age. But yeah, he's on the phone. He's trying to like. The cartoon's playing in the background, and then the guy comes over the loudspeaker. Yeah. And just like the way that announcement evolves from something that seems like, we're in an emergency to, the emergency system is also in trouble. Because that guy just like starts spouting off about cutting people's dicks off and women being fucked by dogs. Yeah. And then just you get the maniacal laughter. Yeah. And it's like, we don't get enough maniacal laughter.
Yeah. I love a good maniacal laugh.
I had a note about that too, because I felt like, that laughter like kept going for a while, and I felt like that creeped me out quite a bit. I had a note that
the gleeful look on their faces. I kind of wish they wouldn't have done the black eyes thing. Personally, I thought like it would have been more effective if the appearance difference was a little bit more subtle. Not subtle, like, but if it was more behavioral and less like I just wish there wasn't a big physical marker like that.
Yeah.
Like they could just look puffy faced, but otherwise look fairly human, and then just have that crazy maniacal smile that they all had. Like that alone is creepy enough. I felt like the black eyes were maybe a little bit overkill. It didn't take me out of it. It didn't really bother me, but if I'm nitpicking, I feel like maybe it was it, because then it just reminded me a little bit too much of Train to Busan.
Okay. Yeah. I liked it because I thought like the reason why the eyes were black was just because they're fully dilated, and like that's what that's what predatory animals do.
That's a good point.
Because like predatory animals, their eyes fully dilate so they can take in everything around them and then attack. Yeah. So it's like they're just in constant attack mode.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, the maybe the most effective scene for me was the train scene, because it goes from tense to more tense to like creepy to like, oh my God, terrifying. Where like on the train ride, just quick high level, what happens is Kat is on the train in the morning, and it's like a commuter train, everyone's going to work, and this weird old fucking incel guy who looks to be about 30 years older than her essentially like tries to, in a very creepy way, like profess his love for her, but in like I see you all the time, and I decided today is the day I'm going to tell you you're beautiful or something. And then she's like, okay, thanks. And then he obviously didn't get the reaction he wanted. So then he started like lashing out at her. It was just like this very classic incel mentality.
Yeah.
And then he ultimately turns into like the big bad of the movie, essentially, when he becomes infected. And it's like the creepiest part was like you could see it, like shows how his like polluted mind was already dangerous. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like even before he got infected, because he was like this weird fucking, misogynistic incel dickweed who like thought, he didn't get the reaction he wanted from telling a woman half his age that she was beautiful or something, and then tried to blame it on society and talk about how it wasn't, like she was in the wrong. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it was this super toxic masculinity thing. So he was capable of horrible things even before he got infected. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he already had his ego going when he was just thinking already. It's like, well, I'm a man and she's a woman. And if I tell her that I have like her, even though we've never spoken before in our lives, that somehow she will respond the way I want her to respond. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hated
So
it.
It was a
Very
great
triggering.
It was a great that was the kind of social commentary that I saw, like not even the really political charged stuff, but this whole idea of like just like really toxic interpersonal relationships and attitudes.
Thing. I feel like what I liked about that and kind of what you're talking about is that I feel like that it was just showcasing like the normality of it, like adding that to showcase like what kind of people can exist. I'm like, I've experienced a similar situation in my past, and I'm like, no, so that's so fucking normal, and I know so many people probably have as well. So
that probably happens on fucking every train in the country once a day. You know what I mean? But then it evolves from that like really uncomfortable thing to a guy who you see with sunglasses on, and you don't see his eyes are black, but you see the tears coming down. You're like, oh shit. And the just absolute brutality of him just going on a stabbing rampage in the train, and the confusion and terror of him just stabbing everyone on the train was fucking wild. There was one little part where like he stabs a guy in the neck and there's like a borderline blood volcano that happens. Like that was a little over the top. I mean, I've never seen someone stabbed in the side of the neck, so I don't know exactly how much blood's going to spray out of there, but it was a little bit Verotika level PSI coming out of his neck.
Not even. That was Nightmare on Elm Street, Johnny Depp's bed.
It was so it was an intense, and it wasn't even the power it came out, it was the volume of blood. It's like all the blood in his body simultaneously exploded upwards to the ceiling of the train. Like,
I don't think you can get people to do that if they're in a centrifuge.
It was intense. It took me out of the scene a little bit. It was still an incredible scene, but if they would have took that one over the top blood explosion out, it would have been way more effective.
The scene that happened right after that, where it like panned out and he just kind of was like checking the scene. I thought, but it was very quick. But I felt like I kept looking at it. I was like, that scene right there is perfect. I was like, it's so bloody everywhere, and he's just kind of like an animal on the prowl. It's fucking insane.
Yeah.
With a smirk.
And this is when the creeper incel businessman, which I think I looked on IMDb, is just called businessman.
Yeah.
This is when he becomes infected, obviously, at this point. But Kat escapes with another woman named Molly, who has sustained an eye injury
by the businessman.
Yes. Well, do you see how that happens?
Yeah,
to her eye?
stabbed her.
He jammed her.
With the freaking umbrella, right?
Yeah.
You do see that. But she escapes, and overall, I thought the performances were just fucking great. And the one thing that really, just a bunch of little things stuck out at me, aside from like the dialogue and all that sort of stuff, because we should say this was, I watched it with subtitles. I assume that's what you guys did as well. It was in oh my goodness, what language is it in? It's in Mandarin. Yeah, I always wanted Mandarin Chinese. What I was gonna say was way more embarrassing than that. I could not get the word Szechuan out of my mind, which Szechuan is like a specific Chinese cuisine. I think they do speak Mandarin primarily in the Szechuan province, but all I could think was Szechuan, and I'm like, I'm hungry. Any case, yes, they speak Mandarin. So
now I don't want to Rick and Morty, because that was the last reference to that.
Sauce. But yeah, so it's weird because I think I do because you don't get the real true representation of like the line deliveries when you don't speak that language fluently, I think, or at least for me, I always have questions where I'm like, if it's not a language that I speak, which I only speak one language, but if I don't speak that language, I feel like I give it a lot more leeway and just say like, oh, the performances seemed good because the physicality of them and stuff, but you don't really get the true nature of the line delivery, I guess. But overall, I thought it was great. The physicality of the performances I really loved. And I noted one thing where Kate is helping Molly and they get into the hospital and they're running down the hallway. And it's not a stunt or anything. It's them two running, and Molly's like leaning on Kat's shoulder, and they just like both simultaneously fall and eat shit in the hallway. And I was like, "Fuck, that was like a hard fall they both took."
Right.
I don't know. They just were all in on the performances.
Was that when they ran into that dude who was just like, "What, are you blind?" And he's like, "Oh God, you are blind."
That was after that, because that was in that was when they were still in the subway.
Yeah.
But that was a pretty crazy scene where the businessman bites his nose off. We kind of jumped through that, but
yeah.
Well, I mean, it's almost, I don't want to say mundane, but like, the nose biting scene would be super effective in like any other film.
Yeah.
But it is just kind of, like ho hum hum drum.
It's not in the top 100 most horrible things you see in this movie.
Right. So it's kind of like, yeah, okay, some dude got his nose bit off.
Yeah.
What else?
Every scene, 10 worse things are happening. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. What did you guys think about, because I think this might be the one negative that sticks out to me, but like, what did you think about the differences between like Kat's story and Jim's story? Because I felt like Kat's story was pretty, like, I thought that was the stronger story.
100%. Yeah.
And then Jim just sort of seems to be meandering from scene to scene.
Yeah.
And it's just like, here's a scene of something terrible.
Yeah, I almost think though that it could have benefited from, because clearly he like wanted to find her, but there was no point to where he was going. Because I had that thought, because I was like, maybe if they would have established that like, oh, if anything were to happen, we go like where they ended up actually talking on the phone, like whatever building he was at, I'm not remembering exactly, but it was like away from town. Like there's nothing established there. So I did like, it felt loose, but it also just felt like maybe it was like exaggerating like both of their personalities a little bit. Like if he's a flight type person and she kind of like she was terrified and scared, but really fought through it.
Yeah, that's why I was like, I agree. It felt ambiguous a little bit. Ultimately, I landed on the idea of it was meant to just kind of go against your expectations instead of like the man, because there was a lot of themes of misogyny and toxic masculinity like in the movie, and I feel like it was one of those things where like the whole time you're waiting for the boyfriend to come save the day, and ultimately he's not there. He never does it. He never carries through with what he says. He got there, but he did kind of the bare minimum, like not bare minimum. He got there, but he missed the point. He just showed up, but he had already been infected. You know what I mean?
Well, even like what you're saying has made me think about like thinking through that a little bit further, is that it almost created this like hopelessness though throughout the movie. It's like no matter what, no one can fucking save you, as much as
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's always going to be on you. Don't depend on other people. Like that almost seemed like one of the messages, or you, like no one can ultimately be trusted or something. I don't know exactly. Like I said, it was a little ambiguous, but even earlier on, you know, you get the character development early that Jim is kind of a flake.
Yeah, the only other thing, because I mean, we don't know if he has a job or not either. I don't think I remember hearing that.
Well, that was the early dialogue was.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they got that job.
He had a job. She had planned, and he seemed like the kind of, I don't say freeloader, but he was kind of like the boyfriend who just like hung around the apartment all day while she worked.
I've had a couple of those.
He's a freelancer. He is a freelancer, and I don't care for this bad mouthing.
Yeah.
He said he had a small client list that he was trying to build.
Steve is very triggered.
Trying his best to build his client list, and this was an opportunity for him with a German ad marketing campaign that would have opened a lot of doors for him.
Seen. Steve's feeling very seen right now. He's empathizing with Jim.
But I will say though that with Jim's storyline though, we got the better kills and the more interesting shit happening. I feel like even on his side, I would put it. You know.
Yeah. A lot of crazy stuff happens in his story, but it doesn't serve a lot for his character or the story.
No, it just sees the outside. It's helped us to see the disaster from two different perspectives, at least, of like she is on the inside, how it's affecting the professional world and the urban environment, whereas he is like, not that he's in a rural environment, but at one point he is, but he's on the outskirts of the city and kind of seeing how it's affecting people at home. You know what I mean? So like it did help us to see two different perspectives of the disaster, but yeah, it felt like the two storylines should have been more intertwined.
More intertwined, or just like, because the whole thing, you're waiting for Kat to get in contact with Jim.
Yeah.
But like Jim has nothing driving him other than escape. He's just going from scene to scene, and then like he shows up at a scene, something happens, he escapes the scene.
Yeah.
But if there was something that like pushed him in a direction, like he was constantly pursued by somebody, or like he was trying to find a way to charge his phone so he could get the call.
Yeah.
Just something like that.
He never had anything to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. His thing was show up, assess the scene, see if he could do something, then leave the scene.
Yeah, he was, I think, and maybe I'm being pessimistic. Maybe it was like he was the embodiment of like driving towards a cause because of loyalty and selflessness, because like he was, the only reason I say this is the scene where he went out. It's actually the scene where he finds the machete and he is trying to go through the maybe I'm reading into this too much, but he's trying to go through the tunnel and the tunnel's blocked with like a 1,000,000 car pileup, you know? And he looks up the mountain, and you could have took that as he can't go over the mountain, it's too big. Or he could have took it as he could just escape into the woods and just say, fuck off, peace, Cat. I'm going to go hide in the woods till this is all over. But he instead decides to intentionally put himself in harm's way and ultimately die. Or maybe even the idea that like he does that, but he's doing it for selfish reasons. And at the end, we'll get to, there's this very like weirdly emotional, almost you're like, you're definitely empathetic for him despite the fact that he's saying terrible things, because you understand the nature of what he's going through. So yeah, I don't know. It was ambiguous, but I guess I like the ambiguity a little bit.
Yeah. I think it was more along the lines of what Meg was saying. Is just like there's no hope for anybody, and I mean we'll talk about it when we get to the ending.
Yeah.
But yeah, you find out there's no hope for anyone.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no. Another great scene I loved was the businessman that was a reoccurring baddie, putting his tongue through the little like mail slot in the gate, going, "I'll see you later." Like that was pretty fucking creepy.
So like when Kat and Molly show up at the hospital, I like the president's address that plays on the TV. I think some of the governmental social commentary was pretty on the nose, throughout the whole film. And I think
even the president being short, I like that. Like having to move the mics down. Yeah. Like he's like this Napoleonic kind of guy. But it's just the whole thing of just like, obviously the government's not going to help you, but it's like, can't politicize, even though it seems like every country has done it. You can't politicize a disease, but the one thing you really get from that is a nice head explosion. Great head explosion.
Yeah, I was gonna say I liked that one a lot. I thought that was good.
Another thing you don't see in a lot of movies. Well
executed. Though I feel like his head would have been more gone, but maybe that's just in my mind.
Yeah,
it was good. I was so good.
It popped like a water balloon.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like
where
rubbery,
the exterior of the water balloon was like somewhat intact and just, I don't know. I thought it was a damn good head explosion. I mean, up there with
Scanners.
Scanners, and I was going to even say Maniac, with Tom Savini, with the dummy in the front seat of the car, which obviously was decades ago. But, I thought it was right up there with it. It was, and also you didn't think, because everything was going into this very like social discourse space at this point where she was at the hospital and you had the people arguing amongst themselves, and it felt like it was going to go into this like Walking Dead type of on the nose commentary of like, we is the real monsters, kind of thing. And you just thought it was going to be like, they were going to go, we're the government, we're going to help you. But they weren't. And then everyone just starts infighting in the hospital, which is what happened. But they also took it up to fucking 11 by the general sticking a grenade in the president's mouth on live TV and blowing his head off. Like they fucking sent it. And I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, could you imagine the American version of this where like probably Alec Baldwin or somebody similar would be portraying the president.
Yeah.
And then,
man,
the general puts a grenade in his mouth.
Yeah. And this is like, and at this point they were talking about the Chinese government, you know what I mean? So I imagine this is not well received by the Chinese government.
Right.
That's why they found a Canadian director.
Yeah. I mean, they technically, I don't know where they shot it, but obviously it's, I don't know if it was in Taiwan or what, but,
yeah, good. I tried to look to see if it, and I think they might be trying to keep it under wraps where it was filmed, because like Canadian director, but there are a lot of references to Germany, and I don't know the geopolitical space well enough to know the exact like everything, but I know like Taiwan is definitely always some sort of strife with mainland China.
Right.
So.
I wonder, there were a lot of people with Singapore ties, like the cinematographer and maybe the guy who did the music for them, or the person who did the music for the movie. So I wonder if even that could be, because it's not a Chinese province, so and they might have been able to get away with it there too. But I did want to ask you, because we're kind of at the point, the guy that I think he works for the subway, maybe, who kind of like ran away from Kat and Molly, but like he's like
the parking lot attendant or something. I felt like, I don't know how you guys thought about him, because he kind of like annoyed the fuck out of me, but I was trying to figure out like why the fuck are we like even wasting like a few minutes on him that we are. Yeah, I mean, I guess it was two things. He was just another example of like people acting in like having the internally already having the programming needed for this type of crisis to happen. You know what I mean? Like, you know, when you see people, you know, like I said, the guy on the subway, the old incel businessman on the subway versus this guy. And like that guy was operating out of like this sense of like just pure, like, I don't know how else to say it, but like incel culture kind of like, I am a man and I deserve women, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and I'm putting myself out there, so I should be reciprocated and all this shit. Whereas
he was just like full on like both self-preservation, but also like that internet keyboard, you know, faux alpha Chad.
Yeah.
Where like he's probably like super strong on the internet.
Yeah.
You know, like, but but like in
he
person
has like drawn on 6-pack on it.
Right.
So like I feel like we've like touched on it and talking about like this instinct thing, but I feel like what was interesting that I thought about sitting here, that like watching people who are already going through a crisis, whether we're talking about the pandemic or just that the fact that something's going on but they're not turned yet, and then compare that to, okay, now we're in crisis because now I am turned kind of vibe. I found it interesting to watch like their personalities shift and change like through that, but that was pretty much not
and it
really
was
an
like
actual full comment.
gradual.
Yeah.
No, I know what you mean. Like it was like gradual. Like it was fast, but it wasn't a light switch. It was like a dimmer switch.
It's just like it's like a different type of instinct that I feel like it's turned on, which is just, it was interesting to watch that. And I think maybe, and that's like maybe what I think about that guy is that I felt like he was doing things because he was fucking scared and terrified and not justifying it. But that was his instincts were like, I'm going to run away from this as quickly as possible.
Well, he was the example is like, so if the guy on the train is motivated strictly by like his kind of sexual ego and misogyny, then this guy is motivated solely by fear and self-preservation. Even so much so as like he doesn't want to let somebody who needs help use his phone because he's embarrassed she's going to see the anime boobs on his phone or whatever. And then he also literally just lays under the gurney and listens to, you know, which we haven't talked about fully, but Molly getting, you know, skull fucked. I don't know.
That's coming up. We need to talk about that.
Yeah, and he just lays there, and instead of intervening because he's a fucking coward or, you know, whatever. I mean, you could say like, you know, he would have died, whatever, but like he's motivated solely by his own personal best interest.
Yeah, and that's, I think they're just making an example out of him by, you know, the way he just dies. He dies just unceremoniously swallowed up by the swarm. Like nobody
the zombie
gives a shit
orgy
about that
swarm.
guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's just like a pathetic dude.
Yeah.
And they just wanted to criticize that kind of dude.
Yeah, some people,
because there's a lot of them.
Some people suck. Some people are just weak. Like that. I think that's kind of what they wanted to say. You know?
Yeah.
Some people suck because they're malicious. Some people suck because they're weak and cowardly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
But,
yeah. And I guess, you know, I would say that there's probably a more collective instinct, like in just Asian culture in general. They're way more collectivism than we are. We're fucking, you know, terminally individualistic. So, you know, so I think by criticizing somebody who's just weak and doesn't help and just cowers all the time, you know, that's definitely just like
it's even the like, follow. Like he tried to be like it even is so much so as like not just fight or flight, because like I think part of that's like physiologically it's the way your brain's wired. Like if someone walks up and punches you in the face, do you punch them back or do you run away? Like you don't necessarily have as much control over that. But I think the thing that made him really like distasteful as a character and that you were meant to hate him was the fact that he was instead of helping people, like he just quote unquote followed orders. You know what I mean? Like he just shut the door when they were trying to escape instead of helping them. And then he was like, the cops told me to, you know what I mean? So he's all like, not to over dramatize it even more than it is, but he's the soldier in the concentration camp who says, oh, I was just following orders. You know what I mean?
Right.
So he's guilty because he's a coward and just goes along with the worst situation and what people are doing.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I just to go back to the scene where Molly's getting skull fucked.
Yeah.
Like, again, he's cowering under a table, and it's another testament to him, like, letting somebody who is already injured and infirmed, you know, and like, he probably could have taken the businessman.
Or at least distracted him and got him away from him, but no, he just... lays
but
under the thing.
It was a total one-on-one situation.
Yeah.
It wasn't like he was hiding from a horde or anything. He was just ducking from one person.
Yeah.
Right.
That was, you know, not physically intimidating himself.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys had any more comments about that scene too, besides like just elaborating that, that left a lot to your imagination and was intense as fuck. And it's like with the screaming. I don't know if anyone else.
The sound design in this movie was fucking great. Like, it was really good. And that scene is probably the most like prime example is you don't see it happening, but the sound design and the screaming and the voice acting is just like, holy shit. It makes for a very brutal scene.
Yeah.
Even though you see nothing.
You see his face, the businessman's face though too.
Yeah.
I felt like
his
watching
acting, the performance
watching
in general.
Pure joy of him doing that, like
but
I cringed.
Yeah, as well, I think most people should.
If you don't, there may be something severely wrong with you. I don't know.
Yeah, it should make you uncomfortable.
If somebody's like, you're just at home watching it going, nice. Like, like you're one of the cops in the fucking first scene of
so it's
Verotika.
a face thing, is it? Nice.
Oh, it's because he wants to face nice. Yeah, you might have something. You might need to go to the doctor.
Your killer is looking for eye holes.
Got it. Picked up that pattern pretty quick. And then you're treated to a just good old fashioned blood orgy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good for them. I'm glad they had a time.
Yeah, they were having a whole time, weren't they? It was like
times,
it was like the shunt. It was almost the shunting level time, but less body horror and more just gore.
Yeah, just splattered in blood and fucking away.
You get a real good head smoosh after this. You get several good head smooshes. Not just head explosions, but head smooshes.
Yeah.
With Kat, eventually getting her revenge on the businessman, which I kind of like that they didn't leave that to the climax. You know what I mean? Because the whole time they're building him up as this big bad, and I like that she, fairly unceremoniously just like sprays him in the face, like blinds him with a fire extinguisher, and then just smashes his fucking head. But you do get an emotionally charged moment where he's like, "You're the same as me." Although I did think it was a little on the nose. Like, we get it. This is all a big, metaphor for the dark side of human nature and all that. We get it.
Something in me, just like when he's getting his face smashed in and like he's saying, "You're the same as me." I don't know why, because it's not a one-to-one analogy, but I just wanted him to go, "So much for the tolerant left," as he's getting his face smashed in.
Like, just on the nose, like he's
right.
He's
just because some of the stuff,
or he just
again,
like, as he's doing that, he just like leans back and just like puts his MAGA hat on, like slowly.
Just because like there are some like just really on the nose commentaries in this, which I think it makes it more appealing to a wider audience. Because if this was like steeped in like Taiwanese, inner political, conflicts, we might not get it. Yeah. So like it does expand it to a wider audience, but at the same time, like, it just really felt like, so much for the tolerant left. My face.
It's a very like, and it's not even necessarily like making a take solely on like American politics or Western politics. I think it's just like this. It's a metaphor for just like the ugliness that happens when people resort to like this extremely nationalistic mentality. You know what I mean? Maybe I don't know. but it did at times feel very pertinent specifically to America.
Yeah, and also just because like that's aided by the previous scene where that cowardly guy, the parking attendant, is swallowed up by the swarm, and Molly has turned after.
Yeah.
And like as she's killing him, as she's killing the parking attendant with the bone saw, she's talking about like how she finally feels accepted because now she just joined up with the group.
Yeah, she was like, I've always had trouble. What did she say? I've always had trouble making friends. Turns out I just needed the right group of people or something like that.
And it's the people covered in blood who are using their blood as lube just like 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So joining up with like, you know, the most depraved people. So sure, they accept her, but also like, that doesn't make you good.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was gonna add a comment to that. I was like, when the group of people was like, they were grabbing the attendant there, I thought that was a really interesting scene. It's just like that movement of the camera back to then see them all like to the side and then just like attack him. I thought that was amazing too.
They did some real cool, not even jump scares, but just creepy surprises because there's no music sting or anything, so it's not like a shitty jump scare. It was like these panning shots that ultimately you see like something in the background horizontally, like even way earlier we talked about was like the first kind of when shit hits the fan in the diner and the old woman who he saw on the roof walks in and it's out of focus, but you could clearly see it's her hair kind of walking in behind him, but everything is calm, and like I said, there's no music sting, there's just they did just like I said, cinematography was really strong, definitely good.
So I think we're probably up to the point where Molly Cat, she gets saved,
right?
Quote by the doctor who's like hiding in this clean room, like behind
with a hazmat suit and and a gun.
Yeah. This was, I think this is where the movie kind of drags the most.
I would agree. This scene could have been much quicker. I think like this is how I took it, and I could be wrong here, but like we keep showing these different people who are doing the wrong thing, but they are always either by instinct or by just like self-delusion, they don't think that they're doing the wrong thing. So like you've got, like I said, guy on the train. Then you've got the little turd who hides under the thing. Now you've got this guy he's not underprepared. In fact, he's the doomsday prepper. He's the overprepared guy who has a bunker in his backyard and 750 ARs in his house. He's that guy. Yeah. And he thinks he's got a leg up on everyone and he's got everything planned out. But even when it comes down to it, he ultimately he thinks he's doing bad things for good reasons.
Right.
But ultimately, he's just as big of a piece of shit as anybody.
Right. I think the dragging of it too could aid to that. We were like, we were definitely walking into that hesitant to trust this person because we're like, no one's trustworthy at this point. But I think there was like a part of that like wanted us to try to trust him.
Yeah, like he's a faux hero.
This one last ditch effort to like have someone who might be a savior for this whole movie.
The guy who has been preparing for this for a year must know what he's doing.
Right.
Yeah. There's just that side of it where it's just like, I feel like with having seen so many zombie movies at this point, it just like I never felt trustful of that character.
Yeah, he felt like the lieutenant or whatever from Day of the Dead.
Right.
Yeah, or something like that. You know what I mean? His exposition and his very long monologue and all that were like, I did want like the one thing where he's like, he tries to be like all business. Like, I'm a professional. I'm figuring this out. We're going to take all the necessary steps and I've planned this out. You're going to handcuff yourself to the thing. We're going to use the chemical shower to disinfect you. But even then, his creepy human nature is popping out because he's watching her reflection undressing in the reflection on the cabinet or whatever the fuck it is, you know?
Yeah.
So like he is just, no matter how put together and planned out and doomsday prepper he has become, he is still susceptible to the same fucking things as all these other people.
Yeah, and then we see that come to life when we see these babies. Like when she puts her clothes into that the trash can, and she hears the babies crying. Yeah, and clearly he was doing tests on babies and killing them, and then they were turning to zombies too.
Yeah. Yep.
That was rough.
He did a whole baby thing where he was in the maternity ward and there were babies and they were going to get killed. What he justified it as, they were going to die anyway. So he was hoping one of them would be immune so that he could use one of their blood to because the government was coming to pick him up because he was obviously some sort of like scientist or government official or something like that. So he was going to, hopefully one of these babies were going to be immune so he could take them and they could use that to create some sort of, vaccine or whatever. But all he ended up doing was just killing all the babies.
Right. And he admitted to liking that,
Well, at the end, when the thing took over, but I couldn't tell if that was the virus or whatever talking and wanting her to be upset, and that's why he said it, or whether he really was that sadistic under the surface. I don't know.
Yeah. I think it was just, you're just saying wild shit to say wild shit, but
he's wilding out. Yeah, he's wilding out. That much is clear.
The whole thing with experimenting on the babies and they're going to die and everything, we're not even 24 hours into this event.
Pretty early to be killing babies. Yeah.
So was it around lunchtime that he's just like, I better try to experiment?
This is a good tuna melt. I should kill this baby.
Oh my fucking God.
Yeah.
He basically, I feel like, was admitting that they've been doing these tests and they've known this shit for a while. That's how I took that as. This was not new.
Yeah. No, I just felt like he had did it that day, like just a couple hours early.
Maybe
that specific one. I mean, babies.
And he was becoming unhinged.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the fact that he was like, so he was a guy who he talked about how he like kept his gun because of military service or whatever. But then he's like constantly pointing it at his own head, like way too much, like not once in a dramatic show of something. No, he's just like, as he's talking, he keeps pointing the gun at his own head, and I'm like, first of all, anyone with military training, I don't think would just like flippantly be talking and pointing a gun at their own head. And also, like, I don't know. I just felt like his performance was a little indulgent, I would say. Like he was just chewing the fucking scenery, maybe a little bit more than everyone else,
And that's why like the turn for him doesn't really work, because he has so many signifiers that he's not a good person.
Yeah.
Like you could understand if he was like a super cautious, like, just weaselly scared person, which is why he would handcuff her and all that. But he's not. He's very like in charge, and then like, but also not in charge because he has to be told to turn around to not look at her naked, but still tries to look at her naked, waving the gun at his head. So it's like he's never a person to be trusted. So like if there was a stronger turn from like just like a little terrified weasel to a monster, maybe that.
I think they wanted to show, and maybe it got lost a little bit in the like kind of cultural translation, because if this was an American movie, I could picture who that guy would be. Right, he would be a kind of like the guy who's heavily armed from Tremors. You know what I mean?
Okay.
What the hell's that actor's name?
Burt Gummer.
Yeah. He would be kind of like that, where like he's the take charge commando badass who's all got everything worked out. But then you learn that he did these terrible things, but he thought they were justified. So it's like most people don't think they're bad. You know what I mean? Like he thinks he's doing the right thing. He thinks he's doing what's best for the common good. But people, even smart, organized, capable people, are always capable of deluding themselves. Like that cognitive dissonance is always going to be an issue, no matter how put together someone seems to be.
Yeah.
So like maybe some of it got, I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt, maybe giving it too much leeway, but yeah, he seemed unhinged from the beginning.
Yeah, not good.
Yeah, it wasn't great. It was the worst part of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It just could have been quicker is all I wanted.
Yeah,
Sure.
honestly, if you cut it in half, we wouldn't be having this conversation probably.
Right.
Yeah.
yeah. So they basically leave there because they're trying to go to the roof because they know the helicopter's coming and she gets reunited with Jim. But after this is they're getting attacked by other zombies on the way. And we realize that Jim is also turned, which I felt this was a really interesting.
It was an interesting
Like,
decision by like in like script decision, because you thought the whole time what was going to happen was they were going to reunite. You were going to have this heartwarming moment, and then it was kind of going to be like Train to Busan or something, where it's like one of them has to sacrifice themselves for the other. Like that's what I just kept thought. I kept imagining it was going to be the helicopter scene, and Jim's getting eaten, and cats flying away in the helicopter, and he, and the Titanic soundtrack plays. I just thought it was going to be something like that. But
I feel like that's just like a very romantic take on the idea versus like how much this movie was just alluding the entire time of how hopeless this entire situation was.
You're probably right. Yeah, it wasn't in the cards, but like the just as a jaded horror fan, that was the first place you think it's going to go. You know what I mean? Like upon closer inspection, it was never going to go that direction. But like that would be the most predictable ending, and I've come to expect the most predictable ending. But this movie's better than that. So yeah.
But they almost lead you up to that water to drink it, though, because when he's like, I needed to find you, and then he goes off on the rails and shares that he wants to cut her tits off.
He shares that piece of intimate knowledge.
Overshare.
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 TMI, Jim.
The only thing I didn't like is that they gave it away like just one scene too early.
Yeah, that's what I was getting to. Yeah.
But she had to get away from him. She had to somehow almost give us the impression that she might get away from him. Or maybe explain why.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Okay.
She calls him while she's in the hospital, or she texts him, and he's walking through the hospital with the phone and it says 8th floor, he has a gun.
Yeah.
And he's reading it, and then he just drops his phone in a puddle of blood, which like gives away.
Oh, I got you.
That gives away that he's been turned.
Yeah. Well, even
I got you.
Time they talked before that, he had this weird like flashback. I don't know, flashback, like
hallucination.
Yeah. That is suggesting that he's infected, but even more so because you start like those could have been red herrings. You know what I mean?
Right.
But then when he shows up and the door opens and he's standing there with the machete, and you immediately see his eyes, that's where I thought they jumped the gun, because that could have waited 45 more seconds,
right,
and had him fight the big bad together or whatever. Then it actually is going to turn out good, and then it's actually I really love you and I want to cut your tits off, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh shit, you know what I mean? That would have been a gut punch.
Right.
But they just established that he was infected a little bit too early, I felt like.
Yeah he was just too sweaty, too slimy. It was too like it was too apparent.
That's
and then
how
they
I feel
also
right
had
now
just
in this office. It's hot as fuck.
Yeah.
So the final scene though between the two of them, it is a weird empathy.
Yeah, it was. I can't think of another movie that made me feel exactly like that.
Yeah, just because like he's wounded, he's dying, and it's almost a callback to that scene I was talking about with the guy on the morning announcements. The emergency broadcast speaker, because he's like he's trying. Yeah, the morning announcements.
I just think about like
morning
today in the cafeteria we'll be serving fish sticks and macaroni and cheese. Like that's more.
I don't know how Taiwan goes. Maybe they have a giant cafeteria.
They might. I don't know.
I'm not smart, but he's like trying to profess like how he still loves her and cares about her, but then he just can't help himself, and it turns again, and he does the overshare of like, I'm going to cut your tits, and
But he's saying like it's because I love you so much.
Right.
So you feel like you know what's changing in his brain, and you know that he can't control this, or not only can't control it, in his current state of mind, he is professing the most like love he can.
He's definitely setting a bar for me for the next time I start dating someone, you know.
Yeah, you want them to profess their intentions about...
Yeah, like, love me so hard that you just want to cut my tits off.
Well, and then, like, it's so weird because everything else, like, the idea of being infected is normally like a fate worse than death. Mm-hmm. But for this, he's like, it feels awesome.
Right.
And I was like, whoa, that puts a whole... Like, because they all acted like they were having a blast.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you're like, oh, this looks kind of... Look, like they're having a fucking blast. Freaking blood orgies, running around, fucking playing weird games where you smash people's balls against poles. Like,
basically, if you're mentally unstable, do not watch this movie because you're going to get some terrible ideas.
Everyone was all into it. Like, they were all having a blast, and like all the living people were the party poopers. But then... But then at the end, when he's like, no, it feels awesome. Because she goes like, how does it feel? Because he still hasn't went fully over the edge. So like I said, it's kind of gradual. And in those last moments, she asked him how it feels. And he's like, it's fucking sick. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which was a weird...
Which, I mean, you know, you can draw a more subtle parallel between like people, especially in America, who would like get coronavirus. And then, you know, they have the antibodies. Mm-hmm. You know, I know after I got it, I was like, nah, I'm invincible for a bit. This fucking rules.
Steve was just kind of licking doorknobs everywhere.
Oh
like, this fucking rules. This is awesome. This is like, I feel, you know, you feel a sense of freedom and a sense of safety in a way. So like, yeah, I get, you know, there's a little subtle spin to that. Because like there's plenty of people who felt that. Yeah. Of like, I've been infected now. I'm part of that group, and you know it didn't kill me, and so like I get to be, you know, awesome. So
I think the other thing that was really the final scene was very, very memorable, and again the sound design was a big part of this. It's Jim sitting there dying, like you suspect that he is expiring, like you watch him die. Mm-hmm. Covered in blood, but he's got the biggest, craziest grin on his face. Like he is just having a fucking blast.
Yeah.
And as that's happening, all you hear in the background is Kat running up the stairs to the roof, opening a big metal door, and then presumably being shot by like a 50 cal machine gun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like just getting mowed down by the chopper.
Right.
Right. Which also hilariously, because she is immune and has antibodies,
right,
and would have been a vector for solving the crisis.
Yeah.
but no, she gets gunned down because the government don't care.
Yeah.
Right.
And meanwhile, she just had this horrific death of getting, you know, ripped apart by a machine gun fire, and Duder at the bottom of the steps just ate shit, but he was having a blast.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, internally, his brain thought it was awesome.
Yeah.
So it's just, it was a really, there's a lot of stuff going on.
He was having a real good for her moment.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
God.
No, that scene, the whole last scene stuck with me and made me feel so terrible. Like I just felt sad.
Would it have helped, Meg, if as he was sitting there right before he died and right after she got machine gunned, he was just like, yes, queen. Would that have helped?
There's like a Queer Eye fucking cameo.
God, Brian, like you spoke that into existence, and like that's going to happen in the American remake now. Like,
yes, queen.
Yes, queen.
Oh, boss bitch. Just like
girl boss gets hers.
You guys are ridiculous at this point.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So I love like throughout the entire film, there's so much gore, so much blood, so much
Jesus Christ.
horrific imagery.
Just guts. So much guts.
And I'm watching all this and I'm thinking to myself, this is a fucking Cannibal Corpse album come to life.
Fuck yes. 100%.
And then
Then
the
they ended.
song right at the end sounds exactly like Cannibal Corpse.
Dude, and they do that thing that I love, which is a very emotional, like quiet, deliberate moment, and then hard cut to
yeah. I actually just like, who the fuck is this? I want to know who this is. I want to go buy their album right now. But I was like, the guy who did the music, I think he just literally was like, what does a metal song sound like? What would make this seem so intense and badass? And he just wrote the most generic metal song, but it was still groovy and awesome.
Yeah. It was just full on like a Cannibal Corpse ripoff, but it worked because that's all I was thinking of. So hey,
for sure.
Yeah, 100% worth a watch. Brace yourself. Not a light watch. You know, if you're thinking about watching, Terror Train or something like that, maybe skip this one tonight and come back around when you want something super intense. But holy shit, honestly, in the last 5 years, if I had to really go through and think of like the 10 most impressive horror movies that I've seen that have come out in the last 10 years, I bet at least half of them would be Asian horror films.
Yeah.
Like they are on the, I mean, there's so much good horror happening from directors all over. But my God, there's some of these Asian I mean, I know it's a Canadian director, but some of these Asian productions, whether it be, Korean or Indonesian or Vietnamese, like there's so many fucking good movies coming out of Eastern and Southeast Asia.
I feel like we like move in waves with this kind of stuff because like Japan especially, but like Japan and Korea were really killing it like in the late 90s because that's when they were making The Ring and The Grudge, and then all that stuff came to America and got remade. And so like I think now we're like past another lull in like 2010. I think things started really picking up again because you think like stuff like I Saw the Devil, The Host, and then like we're getting this stuff like Train to Busan and this
One
film.
Cut of the Dead, there's just I tell you what, I mean, and I'm a big zombie fan. I'm a huge Romero fan, and we live in Romero country here, and the United States, specifically Western Pennsylvania, where we live, is the origin of modern zombies, not zombie lore. I mean, that's obviously like Haitian and stuff, but and from all over the world. But I don't know, man. A lot of these Asian horror, I think they've taken, like, they are the masters of the zombie movie now. In a lot of ways.
I'm just glad that it's like there's something like people are thinking about it differently now too.
Yeah, so when you think a genre is so fucking tapped out and so expended, you get something that's like completely, like it's a new. I'm not saying completely new, but it was definitely a fresh take in a lot of ways on the genre, the subgenre.
Yeah, and like we already said, though, it is inspired by like Western comic book. So it's an interesting play that again we adapt things that the Asian markets make, but they also adapt things that we have. So it's I think it's a lot of fun, and it leads to good products.
A lot of cross-pollination there. Yeah. Well, goddamn, guys. I mean, I don't know that we've ever had two minisodes that have been more drastically different, not only in our conversation, but in the quality of the films.
Yeah.
We go from the worst fucking movie in the world in Verotika to a really genuinely fucking awesome movie, in my opinion, in The Sadness. So, good little double feature for you guys tonight. Here's what you do. You have a couple beers. You numb your brain just a little bit. You watch The Sadness. Then as a nice palate cleanser, you get super baked and you watch Verotika. And you try to appreciate never mind. Fuck it. Don't watch Verotika. It's not worth it. Meg suggested maybe eat mushrooms and watch it. It might be different. Perhaps.
This one, if you're a type of person who will take mushrooms and like watching horror things or make you feel intense, go for it. Otherwise, don't. Because I made the mistake watching Daniel Isn't Real one time on shrooms, and that was
I was talking
awful.
about Verotika. I was talking about Verotika.
Sorry about that. Yeah, no, Verotika, 10 out of 10. Take shrooms. Do it. Have fun with it. You actually will like him
Not
more.
8 out of 10. Hard 10 out of 10.
Hard 10 out of 10.
It goes from the worst movie you've ever seen. You eat mushrooms, 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine the sadness on mushroom. That's a little much.
Man.
It's intense. That's intense.
Yeah.
So, well, any final thoughts on this flick?
Not really, no. Just kind of interested to see what the director does next.
Yeah.
I mean, this wasn't bad at all for like a first feature.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And, maybe we'll see a sequel to this. I don't care if we do or not, though, because I think it's perfectly encapsulated.
I was going to say I'd almost be like eye roll if they did do a although the Train to Busan quote unquote sequel, the island, what was it called?
Peninsula.
The Peninsula, I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, I didn't see it yet, but
yeah. In any case, yeah, don't think it doesn't need a sequel.
Yeah.
Take your success, go somewhere else, do another genre.
Yeah. I don't think it needs a sequel, but the special thing of if it did get a sequel is you probably won't follow anybody that's in this film because everybody's fucking dead.
They all dead. Yeah, they dead as hell.
So you'll just get a new story. So you might get something. They might show you something different. So
yeah. Perhaps. Well, goddamn, we've done it. We've talked about the sadness. Remember, boys and ghouls, tune in next week when we discuss what our let me make sure I got my timing here right. We'll have next week where we will actually announce our picks for. We actually have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have one of them old five Monday situations in May. So next week we will tell you what our choices for creatures from the deep are. If you've got any suggestions in the meantime, go ahead and check us out on the social medias where you can provide some suggestions or say, hey, here's a creature from the deep movie that I like, or here's another minisode idea, because again, we got 2 more minisodes after this to do in May. So at Halloween is Forever on Instagram, at Halloween Forever on Twitter, Halloween is Forever Podcast on Facebook, Halloween is Forever Pod on Gmail, at gmail.com and for the emails, but also at Halloween is Forever Pod on TikTok.
Did it,
guys. Check us out.
We're closing in on 60 followers on TikTok.
Yeah. We are almost at. We're getting ever closer to 10,000 followers on Instagram. I will admittedly say I have not been as active on there as I probably should be because on account of my job has been crazy. But we'll get a lot more fun stuff on there, especially because, guys, it's about to be June. June is officially summer. Summer is pre-spooky season. We all know this. So we'll get a little bit deeper into that in the coming months. Any other announcements? Anything else we got to talk about before we wrap this sumbitch up?
Nah, I'm good.
That's about it. More information to come on our live show here in Pittsburgh, which we'll be talking about. Also, we've got a couple of other podcast guest situations that are going to be coming up in future weeks, which we'll talk about probably on the next minisode. Yeah.
Oh, no, wait. I just got one. I remembered.
Oh, what is it?
Get your Gabagool t-shirt.
Get your gabagool.
Yes. Steve, we'll post about it here in the next, probably today when this comes out, or in the next day.
Yeah, it's the day it comes out, Monday.
Steve came up with an excellent design for those of you who did like our Verotika episode. If you haven't, I listened to that while I was driving out to Philadelphia. I laughed my balls off.
Right.
It's such a funny, stupid episode. Listen to the Verotika
I had
episode.
to pause editing. It was so fucking funny to me.
That's funny.
I was cracking the fuck up. I was cracking up. Steve designed a gabagool spelled Ghabagool Ghoul spelled Ghoul shirt that is certainly going to get us in at least one fist fight with either Glenn Danzig or Jerry Only. So check it out on the social medias. You'll be able to order that on TeePublic, and I think for the first week or something like that, it's heavily discounted. So if you're
first 3 days it's 35 off.
Yeah, so if you're going to get it quick. And then also while you're there, grab one of those "My balls are full of pee" shirts while you're at it. It's a real crowd pleaser. I wore it to a beer festival recently, and it got a lot of comments. Oh man, it's a real conversation starter.
I'm sure it is. That makes me really happy.
A pink "My balls are full of pee" shirt. Started a lot of conversations in the right group. So, all right. If that's all we have, boys and ghouls, for the Halloween is Forever crew, I'm Brian.
I'm Meg.
I'm Steve.
Okay, bye.
Me.
Okay, bye.